Lewis was driving his Model 3 home from a Christmas celebration. He was traveling north on I-75 outside of Miramar, Florida, very early in the morning when he heard a loud bang behind him. When he looked back, he saw a car spinning on the road before hitting the central barrier. When he got home, he checked his Teslacam footage and saw what had happened. An SUV had been speeding and rear-ended a slower-moving car at full speed, sending it spinning into the barrier. Lewis immediately called the police and told them he had footage of the accident. They told him they would call if they needed it, but he never heard back from them. Lewis scanned news and traffic reports for several days looking for any reporting on the accident, and so did we, but it was never reported, which hopefully means everyone involved was okay. Alexander was driving on a one-lane street in Colton, California. A Nissan Juke was tailgating him, so when he had the opportunity, he changed lanes so they could pass him. The Nissan pulled up next to him, and the passenger leaned out of his window and started to throw objects at the Tesla. Alexander didn't even notice this at the time, as he wasn't paying much attention to the Nissan. He thought they'd just been tailgating him because he was driving too slowly for them, which shouldn't have been a problem anymore. It wasn't until they arrived at the next red light that Alexander heard a loud knocking on his window. He looked over and saw a guy trying to open his door before throwing a metal object at his Tesla. Alexander floored the accelerator and ran the red light to get out of there. He went straight to the police station and reported the incident. The Teslacam footage was clear enough that the police were able to identify the attackers. Alexander filed an insurance claim and his car was fixed after a couple of weeks. It also turned out that Alexander's girlfriend was following him in her car right behind them, and she took pictures which they also gave to the police. Danielle had just dropped off her son at school when she witnessed this. A Prius lost control and went up and over the median. The driver of a Camry swerved to avoid it, but ended up hitting it instead. Danielle dialed 911 before rushing over to both parties to ensure they were okay. They were both fine, and she gave them her contact information so she could share the video of the accident with them. George and his wife Janet were driving in Winterville, Georgia. They were slowing down to make a safe right turn when it suddenly wasn't so safe anymore. A fugitive was trying to evade the police after being pulled over. He almost T-boned the Tesla as he overtook George on the median. George says they just sat there for a few minutes, not moving as they tried to process what had just happened. He also said they'll celebrate their new birthday from that day. We've all heard the jokes about cops craving donuts, right? Well, Tom has witnessed the intensity of this craving firsthand. A St. Lucie County Sheriff's deputy sped past him without any emergency lights on. Tom was doing 45 in a 35-mile-per-hour zone, and Tom estimates the deputy must have been going at least 20 miles per hour over the speed limit. The traffic light turned red, but the deputy entered the intersection anyway and ran the red light. Tom stopped at the light and saw that the deputy turned into a nearby restaurant. Tom couldn't believe what he had just seen, so he decided to follow after the deputy. Sure enough, the cop car was in the drive-thru line for Dunkin' Donuts. Tom submitted his Teslacam clips to the sheriff's office. They decided not to reprimand the deputy and instead threatened to give Tom a speeding ticket. He decided not to continue pursuing the case, and instead he sent the video to Wham Bam. It looks like the donut jokes can live on. Joe was heading to work at 8 a.m. It was a beautiful day, and he says it was just like any other until a Hyundai ran a red light, that is, which caused a multi-vehicle accident. Immediately after the accident, Joe called 911 to report it and informed the dispatcher that he had video of the incident. They asked him to stay at the scene until the police arrived. The responding police officer viewed the video inside of Joe's Tesla, and she was impressed with the detail of the video. It was crystal clear what had happened, and the police and victims were all very grateful for the video. Lloyd was sitting at a red light in Atlanta, Georgia. Beside him was a huge pickup truck that had been changing lanes frequently to end up next to Lloyd's Tesla. When the light turned green, the pickup truck sideswiped the Tesla, knocking off the side mirror. Lloyd stopped, but the pickup driver hit the accelerator and took off. Lloyd decided not to pursue them, assuming he'd caught the license plate number on camera. Unfortunately, the plate number can't really be read, so Lloyd wasn't able to go after the driver of the pickup. Caesar was getting on the freeway in Los Angeles, California when he saw what he thought was a carpool lane accident. He was really surprised to see what had actually happened after reviewing the Teslacam footage. The driver of a semi merged without checking their blind spot and pit maneuvered a car, sending it crashing into the carpool lane. So I guess that is technically a carpool lane accident. Andrew was driving in Longmont, Colorado when the car in front of him left its lane, revealing a line of stopped traffic. When Andrew quickly slowed down, the driver of the Jaguar behind him evidently felt they couldn't stop in time and took to the shoulder. Andrew thinks they then realized they could stop in time and moved back into their lane, but they didn't notice the car behind them had already moved up into their spot. The two cars drove away from the collision for at least 2 blocks, which is where Andrew turned. He hopes they pulled over to exchange information. Just in case, Andrew contacted the police department to offer his Teslacam footage. They confirmed that someone had already reported the accident and took his contact info in case they needed to talk to him later. Leo was driving his 2-week-old Model 3 down I-376. After merging, a truck pulled up next to him before rolling coal. This was the first time Leo had experienced this, so he didn't know how to feel about it. He just laughed at the time, but he wonders if he should feel attacked. What do you think? Dustin was driving his brand new 2022 Tesla Model 3 Performance down the Pacific Coast Highway in Malibu, California when he pulled up alongside a Ferrari. The Ferrari driver revved his engine, and since the road ahead was clear of other drivers, Dustin decided to give it a go. They blasted off, and Dustin took the lead. The Ferrari started to catch up to him as Dustin let his foot off the juice pedal. We can clearly see the surprised look on the other driver's face, as well as the thumbs up he gave Dustin. The Ferrari driver, his passenger, and Dustin the Devil were all laughing hysterically when they pulled up next to each other at the next stop. Both the Ferrari driver and Dustin were completely shocked by the outcome. Dustin says the guy was totally cool about the situation rather than getting upset about losing to a Tesla. Dustin also wants to mention that while he loved the acceleration, he usually tapers his speed to avoid going too high over the speed limit. He urges everyone to drive carefully and be aware of your surroundings if you ever decide to punch it. He also told us that the only ride that beats his Tesla in terms of thrills and excitement is his skydiving rig. Speed might not be the only thrill Dustin the Devil is chasing after. Here we can see him driving in Tijuana, Mexico. He told us it's an exciting and crazy place, and it always promises crazy dashcam footage. This time, he was driving back to the US border when he witnessed an accident. When he first saw the crash, he thought it was simply the fault of the driver who'd quickly crossed 2 lanes to the left, effectively cutting off the driver in the left lane, who then crashed. However, after watching the footage from the side camera, he saw the driver in the left lane was going excessively fast and weaving in and out of traffic. He now thinks the accident was the fault of both drivers, but he'd like to hear what you think. Who is at fault? Leave a comment. This next video is from Gus, who's also from Mexico. He was driving with his girlfriend after inviting her out for breakfast. The truck in front of them invaded the opposite lane. The driver of the car managed to evade the truck, escaping after receiving the shock of his life. Thankfully, everyone was okay. Dan was driving with his friend in a snowstorm when he suddenly lost all traction and spun a full 360 degrees before ending up back in his lane. Let's watch this one more time on multicam. We've got to come up with a better way to say that. Wham, bam, let's head over to multicam. Eric came to a stop at a red light in the center lane with a Ford Focus behind him. When the right turn light turned green, the Focus driver suddenly reacted to the cars on his right moving by gunning his accelerator. He quickly ran right into Eric, who suspects the driver was on his phone. Eric's repair estimate came in at $950 US, and the other driver agreed to pay the costs out of his own pocket to avoid an insurance claim. Eric adds that the other driver has actually been very cooperative and said he really likes Teslas, and he even used to work for Tesla. Here comes a public warning for all Tesla owners, along with a story from Connor. Connor was sound asleep in his bed at home. His phone was on his nightstand, and his Tesla was parked about 15 feet away on the other side of the wall of his house. Like many Teslas, his uses his phone as a key. In a Sentry Mode video from that night, we see a guy walking up to Connor's Tesla. When he tried the door handle, the car unlocked and gave access to the thief. The next morning, Connor noticed that some things were missing from his car, but he couldn't figure out why. It wasn't until he saw the Sentry Mode footage that he understood what had happened. Connor tried to do the same thing himself. He placed his phone on his nightstand and went outside, but the car wouldn't unlock in his testing. He's puzzled about how the thief gained access. His only theory is that the phone was just close enough for the Bluetooth signal of his phone to reach his Tesla, but this still doesn't explain why Connor couldn't replicate that scenario. Leave a comment if you know how this could have happened. Matt was driving west on I-78 in New Jersey when a pickup driver decided he didn't want to use the highway and instead drove in the grass at highway speed. Matt's 12-year-old son Tyler, who was in the back seat, leaned forward and said, "Yep, that's a Wham Bam Teslacam moment." Shane was driving home in Auckland, New Zealand when he saw a lady on an electric scooter tip over. The lady was okay, and she'd probably only hurt her pride. This submitter recently bought a brand new Tesla Model Y. He was super excited about it and admits he'd probably been talking too much about it in the office, especially about Sentry Mode. His beloved teammates decided to pull a practical joke on him by activating Sentry Mode while he was in a meeting. Being a new Tesla owner, he always checks every Sentry Mode alert. When he went to check on his car, he found this clip of them holding up signs reading, "Merry Christmas to the whole family," written in Polish. The funny thing was, they didn't know about the side cameras, so we get to watch them trying to be sneaky. He says he loves his Tesla, but now he loves his team even more. Teslas get attention, a lot of attention, but this story takes things to the next level. Have you ever had someone follow you home in traffic to ask you out just because you have a nice car? Well, Matthew has. This is his story about how his Model S P100D made his girlfriend jealous. He was on the way home from picking up food and was in pole position at a red light. After launching away from the light, he noticed a Kia directly behind him.
What's a man got to do to get a woman like you?
2 blocks later, Matthew turned left and the Kia pulled up next to him. The driver had her window down and was trying to get his attention, so he rolled down his window. Matthew says she was flirting hard with him, asking what type of car it was and commenting that it was really cool, and that she could never afford something like that. He thanked her and said, "Anything is possible, you could have one too someday." In retrospect, he thinks that comment might have been what led to what happened next. She mentioned again that she really liked it, and he told her thanks again before the light turned green and he turned left. He then engaged in some spirited driving on his way home, and he has no idea how she managed to keep up in her Kia, but he didn't notice her at all at the time. He definitely noticed her when he drove into his neighborhood and pulled into his parking spot. She walked up to his driver's door and asked him if he had a girlfriend. He said something along the lines of, "You actually followed me home?" before laughing and replying, "Yes, I have a girlfriend." She replied, "Well, then she's a very lucky woman," and again said how nice the car was before leaving. Like a good boyfriend, Matthew ate alone that night and texted his girlfriend the whole story. She wasn't too pleased at first, but now she laughs about it. Matthew wanted us to tell you that he loves you, Gina. He also told us he's renting out his Model S on Turo, so we had to check out his listing and wow! Now we understand the girl's reaction. This car is drop-dead gorgeous. He told us he'd give us a great deal if we're ever in Richmond, Virginia, so we'll forward that offer on to all the Wham Bam viewers. I'm not sure if you're supposed to forward that offer on, Wham Bam, but okay. If you watched all the way to the end, here comes a bonus story for you. It's from DJ in Washington, and it's a clip of a very slow-moving crash. It's a miracle nobody was able to stop, but DJ's just happy the car wasn't pushed into his Tesla. He gave a copy of the Teslacam footage to both drivers. Well, on that bombshell, it's time to end this week's episode. Have an epic week, everyone.